So in August, what we did have was a massive dread brawl, right, in nullsec. So when we're looking at the macro graph here of production, destruction, and mining in EVE Online, we see that production up massively as a reaction to the vast destruction that we saw at the end of the month in what was it, A, B something, yeah. So we're going to see the same spike or a similar spike, a little bit slower early September now for mining, I'm sure. But so far, this has just resulted in raw material prices significantly going up. We saw last week gas spiking. So what was it? The fullerite C50, C60, C70. We saw that spiking last week. We saw several minerals spiking as well. So last week was all about replacing what was lost in that large dread brawl, right? If we're moving through here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the actual mining. We'll look at the Power BI here in a second, where you can see that better. But this one is very interesting. So this is the sinks and faucets. So here we're looking at all of the ISK that is coming into the game economy and the ISK that is flowing out of the game economy, right? If we're looking at the beginning of the month, we see 1,819 trillion ISK in the game, and we see faucets adding 138 trillion. That's about normal. That's just in line what we always see. We see sinks of 90. That's also not strange. This is very unusual. We see a positive ISK delta of 43 trillion. What that means is that it's inactive players returning to the game. And you might think, well, did players really come back in force to the game in large quantities? Well, if you remember, there was free Omega time giving out again. So whenever you give out free Omega time, you're going to have inactive players coming back just for the hell of it. So this doesn't really say much about the health of the game. This just says CCP brought back a whole bunch of inactive players for 10 days. So the question is, do they stick around? Now we had the AT. Now we have Twitch drops. We have FanFest. We have in-game events. So this is this is a fairly good environment for those people to stick around. But certainly next month, what we're going to see is we're going to see this active ISK delta turn around again, because in most months it's been negative over the last few years. Yeah. But so what does this mean? This means the money supply increased by almost 100 trillion last month, which is significant. It's a lot, right? Before we look at the money supply, though, just some overall things. If you don't look at the MER all the time, I mean, today we have instead of 200 viewers, we've got almost 2,000 viewers because of Twitch drops, I assume, and the nice raid earlier by Mind One. The biggest sinks in the game are transaction tax and broker fees. So what people are paying in taxes and fees while they're trading on the market. Right? There's a pretty hefty fee between 5 and 10%, depending on your skills. And so that's where most of the ISK flows out of the system, right? Which is healthy to keep inflation in check. The LP stores are also quite significant when you pay real ISK to trade in loyalty points at LP stores. But also when you purchase skill books directly from the system. My Apple Watch is talking to me. When you're buying skill books directly from the in-game interface, that is also ISK that is flowing out of the system. So that's also quite significant because people are lazy. And some of the skill books you just don't buy any other way. So that's how ISK flows out of the game. And the way ISK flows into the game is mostly, if you look at the 43 trillion, that's what we talked about earlier. That's the blue loot and red loot and some other stuff, but mainly the blue loot out of C5 and C6 wormholes. and the red loot out of abyssal space, for example. That is loot that is gained from PvE and then sold to those buy orders that we discussed earlier on the stream. So that's where most of the ISK gets generated out of thin air that enters the system, right? So, and then bounties, obviously, that are paid out, a little bit of ESS, main bank payouts, and incursions and invasions. That's where most of the money comes from that enters the system. Now, if we look at these over time, sleeper components, so that's the so-called blue loot. This is maybe trending down a little bit, but still very high. Overseer personal effects, also still very high. This is also from PvE activities. Triglavian data is red loot, which is confusingly colored blue here, from abyssal space, and bounties, crab beacons, that sort of stuff is rather low. Or rogue drone analysis is PvE loot from drone space, right? So sinks and faucets over time, bounties higher than commodities towards the end here. I'm just looking at, is that even possible? What were we seeing here? Wait. So overall in the month, commodity was 43 trillion and bounty prices were 33 trillion. And we're looking at the sinks and faucets over time, and commodity is below bounty prices. Is this me streaming on Friday and not understanding the markets? How is that possible? Somebody in chat's gonna know this. Somebody smack me over the head and tell me why that is. ESS? ESS and bounties. Right. Thank you. Perfect. Yes. ESS plus bounties are bounty prizes, and commodity is that. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, this is the average, but this would be the month. So for the entire month, bounty prices were higher. So yeah, it's ESS payouts. And then transaction tax. Transaction tax and broker fees, skill blueprints, yeah, pretty much unchanged over the last few months. So there's not a lot happening there. And then let's look at money supply. So money supply took care. This is what inactive players coming back does to the money supply. This doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be inflation. That's not the case, right? Because a lot of these inactive players, they don't do anything with their ISK, so they come back with their big wallets, but then they also leave again without having spent all their money. So this doesn't mean that the market is flooded with ISK, but there's inflation potential here. The velocity of ISK, it's all over the place. This changes a lot. That's why they break it out, the ISK velocity without contracts and the ISK velocity without Plex. So without Plex, there's basically no difference here. So the velocity changes that you see a lot are a lot Plex related. So hell yeah, that says how if you look at the three largest trade items in EVE Online, Plex, skill injectors, skill extractors, right? So almost 50% of the entire trade volume in EVE Online has nothing to do or is not directly related to the actual game environment, the actual game sandbox. Are not player-made items. They are CCP-spawned items, right? So almost 50% of the trade volume is just Plex, injectors, extractors. And that's why when you're looking at the ISK velocity without them, it's very, very flat, because that's where people spend money. That's where, when there's a sale, the markets jump on, and that's what makes a big difference in the velocity of Eve, of ISK. And yeah, somebody in chat is saying that does not sound good. It doesn't. It's kind of, it breaks the immersion a little bit. It's not the player run economy that that you want to see. On the other hand, it is a good sign that at least the ISK velocity is not dropping by that much, right? So it's over the last year or two, it's been fairly stable when we have seen kind of a decline in Plex related velocity. But I'm grasping at straws here. I mean, this is not. It's not great. These are the price indices. So this is what's telling you what the price level is. The mineral price index, so that's just basic minerals, is still very high. That's mainly because of megasite and isogen in particular. A dread brawl like we just saw with a lot of destruction, it doesn't help that. So we haven't seen a lot of things change. Here, the latest introduction of more isogen into the system just wasn't enough to bring that price down. So the CCP definitely has to do something on the isogen front, and I'm 100% sure they're going to do that. I mean, they're definitely going to introduce more isogen into the system. There's no question about it. If you're playing around with isogen right now, you're playing with fire. Don't be surprised if there's going to be a crash in isogen sometime soon. And no, I'm not on the CSM yet, so I don't know anything you don't know, and so I can still talk about these things. This is going to be if I do make the CSM, this is going to be a problem. This type of content is going to be difficult. So thank you, Torrent Gent, for the tier 1 sub, man. Appreciate it. Welcome. So what else? These things don't really say a lot of things because the makeup of these indices is kind of crazy. So it doesn't really, like, you have to look at one level below for this to make sense. And that's this level, but I don't want to bore you all to death. There's a lot of people watching, so we're going to move on to different content. This is what I always want to look at. So this is 18 trillion coming out of C5, C6 wormholes. Granted, this is less blue loot coming out of C5 and C6 wormholes than the last few months. So that's at least, that's at least something. There's other stuff to do. But still, this is a massive chunk of the ISK generated in game. So I showed you earlier, the total commodities entering the ISK, entering the system via commodities is 46 trillion or something. 18 trillion of that coming from wormholes, and that's not a lot of people, right? So the big discussion there is that wormhole people say, well, it's all null blocks farming these holes and funneling that sweet blue loot money out to the null blocks, right? The null blocks are saying, no, it's all staying in wormhole space, right? So the truth, I'm sure, is somewhere in between there. Feel free to share your experiences in chat, whether you know of null blocks funneling out or farming out C5, C6 wormholes for ISK generation, because one thing is clear: this is sweet ISK generation, right? So I don't blame anyone with the capability to jump on this, and I don't know firsthand, right? Because I'm not currently involved with it. So what do you think? Is this all the large wormhole corps, or is this a significant amount of null blocks farming C5, C6 wormholes? They're independent wormhole groups. Because if it's that null mains with wormhole all seems most probable. That's possible as well. Hell yeah. That's right. Null guy here who would love to make ISK a null but has to use C5 farm hole. All right, man. And you're in Horde. You said earlier. I'm just connecting the dots here, man. Hipla, you're in Horde. I know this. Most null blocks have null low sec logi routes. Only individuals. All right. Nulls have SIGs that use that ISK to fund the SIG, and so even though it's null players, the ISK stays in the hole. All right. So like wormhole SIGs, special interest groups. Okay. Stitching a narrative. Hey, I'm gathering information, right? I'm doing information gathering for my hopefully for my CSM for my CSM tenure. I'm preparing, man. I'm preparing. When nullsec builds an empire and systematically produces trillions of ISK, no one bats an eye. Even wormholes do the same. Everyone loses their mind. If you don't like the, feel free to evict wormhole space. Yeah. Oh, I don't, you know, I have nothing against it. I'm just asking about it. I'm actually, I mean, I would love this ISK to be spread to various different groups. That's the healthiest part of it. There's a non-formal pact between all major wormhole corps to freely evict a nullsec corp. Yeah, I've heard about that such behavior. Such nonsense. All C6 and C5 belong to a single wormhole group, Laserhawks. Now I know that's not true. All right. One thing I want to do is I want to go into the PowerBI report because this is a part of the MER analysis that is a lot of fun. So this is where our dear friend Matthew puts the data from the MER into Power BI, and so we can see some really interesting things in here. So first of all, something that I thought was interesting is if you look at this yellow line is the waste percentage, right? So if you're looking at the waste percentage overall, the waste percentage is going down month by month, right? Waste was something that was introduced that was very unpopular, right? But this is basically, there used to not be any waste, but nowadays when you mine, there's always some that goes to waste, and that depends on, you know, I think the skill you have or the modules you use. So you can, there's various ways you can reduce the waste, and the waste is being reduced. So people are wasting less, right? So this is interesting. We can even break this down by ore type. So you can see an asteroid ore, it was up, but then it went down. Gas is pretty steady. Ice is pretty steady, but especially in moons, the waste percentage is dropping from about 15% to about 10%. So it's this is basically it's more either it's, you know, it's more experienced or better skilled characters doing the mining, right? Or the mining being more concentrated or whatever it is. But this is interesting, right? Because overall the amount of ore mined increased. So the blocks are the amount ore increased. So that's the increase in mined ore might also mean a decrease in waste. Less waste means less mining, or else just less efficient mining. No, it means more efficient mining. More people are using ore strip miners? Yeah. Okay. That's good. So that's interesting. Mining by region, you know, if you're still, you know, if you're still surprised by this, like that we have it here, yeah. So overall, if you turn all of this on, if you look at all mining in EVE Online, high sec wins out, right? High sec wins out over null sec. If you look at just asteroids, high sec in front of null sec. Gas, wormholes, unsurprisingly. Ice is very much high sec, and then Moon's null sec wins out, right? Just since we have a very broad viewership today, because of the drops, I think these are interesting concepts to know about the ecosystem of ETH online. Like, where do the different types of mined materials come from? So in terms of region, these are all the high sec regions, and then you have Delve in there as the Imperium home, as the Goon home region. Also very, very, very strong in mining. Then mining value, I think we're not going to jump in here. Production is the Forge. That's what Jita is in front of Delve. So Delve is number 2 in terms of production. This is interesting right here. Oh, actually, mining value, do we have the year over year? No, but production, we have the year over year, right? So right here, this bar is last year, and the dark green bar is last year, and this bar is, the light bar is this year. So this is, while the year over year is increasing, it's still, the production is below last year, which isn't, which isn't great, which we should be able to, if we look at, let's see. If you go here, this certainly doesn't look like it. Matt, is this possible? This year over year, that's got to be like 60% above, right? That's 2023. Oh yeah, that's. I know, Matt. You can click the left arrow on the mining value page as slipped up, and the slicer shouldn't be showing. Okay, so is this is the dark bar is 2023? So are we 60% above previous year? That's the growth rate. Okay, so we are 60% above. That's good. Perfect. So production is above. Trade volume is above. Last year, 30% above, and bounties are above. So overall, we're positive year over year. That's perfect. One thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to show the effect that I talked about earlier with the ISK sinks and faucets, right? So this is the active ISK delta. You can see here that the active ISK delta, remember, this is people leaving the game and coming back. So after 3 months, you're deemed inactive and your ISK is not counted anymore for the money supply. So what you have here is you have typically red bars here, meaning that that there's a net outflow of ISK due to players going inactive. The reason I said earlier that a net inflow that we had last month due to the 10 days of free Omega in the Alliance tournament, or from the Alliance tournament, I think it was the Alliance tournament, right? Then this is very unusual. There's very few months where we have a positive ISK delta, and so overall. Yeah, this is just a different way. Somebody asked earlier if this sheet is public. Yeah, I can post this. This sheet is, you can look at this PowerBI report. Anyone can. It's really fun. And so this is over time. And what you can also see here is the amounts of ships destroyed. Who the main destroying alliances. Who does the destroying, and that's that sort of stuff. So this is a very, very interesting report. Really love it. You can go into the kill counts as well. Thanks, Matt, for providing this. This is really, really, really great stuff. Okay. So destruction is what? It's 45% over year. Great. It's good. Good spot. All right. Let's move back over here.